Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira takes place this weekend in the main event of UFC 281, Adesanya versus Pereira, and I can't wait for this middleweight matchup. The title is on the line. Champion Israel Adesanya attempts to make title defense number 6 against his arch nemesis, Alex Pereira, who's came from the kickboxing world to track down Israel Adesanya in MMA. That seems to be the sort of promo that they're going for in the build-up of this fight, and that's the kind of vibe that we're getting. Alex Pereira, the man who defeated Israel Adesanya before in kickboxing, is now coming to MMA and trying to get that win. It basically is the trilogy between the pair of them, because I do believe this is going to be a striking match. Just hearing the two of them talk in the build-up, I feel like this is going to be a striking match. I don't feel like Israel Adesanya will truly get the sort of like sour taste out of his mouth about Alex Pereira unless he actually goes out there and outstrikes him. I really don't see Israel Adesanya all of a sudden going out there shooting a double leg and trying to get the back and trying to control on top and land total strikes and stuff like that. And even if he does, Alex Pereira is a dangerous guy off of his back on the ground and a very strong guy as well for the division, so he's not easy to hold down. And I think this is going to be a striking match, and I'm going to tell you in today's video why I believe that Alex Pereira is just too much for Israel Adesanya on the feet. Now, I do agree, before we get started here, because I've watched their kickboxing bouts, it's basically 1-1. Israel Adesanya should have won the first fight. Alex Pereira won the second fight by KO. Okay? It was a close decision the first time. I get that. And they gave it to Alex Pereira based on aggression. But in reality, Israel Adesanya landed the far cleaner shots and way more of them as well. He should have won that fight pretty clearly. Okay? The second fight, Adesanya was doing good. He was up on the scorecards. He got a standing 8 count in the second round. And then Alex Pereira KO'd him in round 3 and finished him off. They're 1-1 basically. But something that people aren't taking into consideration, and people that are picking Israel Adesanya, they're using the fact that he should have won the first fight in their kickboxing sort of like grudge match that they've got going on. He should have won the first fight. He outstruck him in the first fight. He's better than Alex Pereira. He was winning the second fight before he got caught and KO'd. Fair enough. He was winning against that version of Alex Pereira. And this is something I don't see anyone bring up. And we'll get to the other reasons why I believe that Pereira is going to win in a second, but we got to clear this up and say this. That version of Alex Pereira was nothing in his kickboxing career. Nothing to what he became later on once Israel Adesanya had left and Pereira really blossomed into a great kickboxer. He started training kickboxing at 23 years of age. He was only doing kickboxing for about 4 or 5 years by the time he took on Israel Adesanya. Adesanya had so much more experience than him. He'd been in so many more big fights than Alex Pereira as well. And something else that I want to mention is that in their second fight that they had, which was like a year or so later, or just under a year later than their first fight, Alex Pereira was coming off a KO loss. He had a long layoff, which was about 7-8 months, which in kickboxing is a pretty long layoff. You know, most of them fight every other month, every 2 months, maybe at longest, because they got to fight often to get the money in, because there's not a lot of money in kickboxing. But Alex Pereira was still new to the sport, while Adesanya was already basically a seasoned, like, well-experienced fighter at the time. Pereira was an alcoholic at that time. His life was in a shambles. He came off an injury as well. He got knocked out by his previous opponent. He had an injury. He was out for a long time. And he stepped in to fight Adesanya in that rematch on short notice. And beat him still. And still beat him. And then went on to become the kickboxer that he is. And that's something that I want to talk about here as well. If this is going to be a kickboxing fight, which I believe both of them deep down know it's going to be, if this is a kickboxing fight, which it has 95% likeliness of being, Pereira is a far better kickboxer than Israel Adesanya. I truly believe that because Adesanya has spent so long in MMA, his kickboxing skill has vastly diminished than what it was when he was actually a kickboxer. Alex Pereira, fair enough, he's had to worry about takedowns against guys like Bruno Silva, who took him down in the first round, and even like against, what's his name? That Brazilian guy. Not Brazilian, yeah, the Greek guy that he took on in his debut. He had worries there because he got took down in the first round as well. Andreas Michailidis is his name. So I understand that in some ways you could say the same thing about Alex Pereira. His kickboxing so far has diminished. But we see the one time that he fights someone who's literally just walking towards him and striking with him in Sean Strickland, he puts him down with ease in the first round with a left hook and has the best performance he's had against the best leveled middleweight that he's took on, which is Sean Strickland, purely because that was a pure striking match. But Alex Pereira stopped kickboxing just over a year ago. And this is something I really want to put into emphasis. He was such a good kickboxer after he lost to Israel Adesanya. He only became a good kickboxer after he beat Israel Adesanya. He was getting by off the fact that he had a little bit of power in his hands and he could land it here and there and it could get him out of trouble the way it did against Israel Adesanya in their rematch. After that, he fought guys like Jason Wilness, who had beaten him before, who had beaten Israel Adesanya before, who's a great kickboxer himself, and he'd beaten him. And that was a great win that he had. He beat other guys in kickboxing as well. He beat Wilness to get the belt in his division. Then he moved up and took the belt off of like a Benner with a left hook in the third round, who's a solid kickboxer himself. World champion. He became the first Glory kickboxer to take 2 belts in 2 different weight classes simultaneously. He became the kickboxer that he is now. Long after the Adesanya fight. Multiple years after the Adesanya fight. He took on Adesanya in their rematch in 2017. He became the great kickboxer in 2019, 2 years afterwards. He came into his own and finally started achieving what Adesanya could never achieve in kickboxing. And I also want to mention, he stopped kickboxing just over a year ago. Just over a year ago. A year and 2 months ago, he was in a title fight with one of the best kickboxers on earth, Artem Vakhitov, okay, who's a dangerous guy that Pereira beat before in a controversial decision and then lost the rematch to in a controversial decision, I believe because they knew Pereira was going to be leaving the sport, so they just sort of gave it to Vakhitov and stuff like that. But either way, very close fight both times. But just a year and 2 months ago, he was in a fight, a kickboxing fight, with one of the best kickboxers on earth. And he arguably should have won. Then he started focusing on MMA, and he's here already. Adesanya has been out of kickboxing for how long now? I want to trace it back and get the official date here. He has been out of kickboxing since he lost to Pereira in 2017. He lost to Jason Wilness, the guy who Alex Pereira then went on to beat, by the way. Before that, he had a very close fight, split decision win over Belagorui, who's a great fighter as well. And then he lost to Pereira in 2017. It's been 5 years. It's been 5.5 years since Israel Adesanya was kickboxing at the highest level. He's about to have a kickboxing fight with a guy who evolved since the last fight Adesanya had in his kickboxing career 5 years ago to a level beyond that and was only at that level a year and 2 months ago. That's a different level of kickboxer coming into this fight against Adesanya, who's been focused on MMA for so long. It's actually a benefit that Pereira has jumped the line so quickly, because he's still, a year ago, at the level to be the best kickboxer on earth. Adesanya was never there. Even when he was an active kickboxer, he was always that slight level below. You know what I mean? That sort of top 10 guy level kickboxer in the world that maybe could have been but never was. Pereira is a savage. He's big. He's the tallest guy Adesanya's, I believe, going to have ever fought, maybe. As far as I'm aware. The longest reach as well, 80 inches of reach. Israel Adesanya has become used to fighting people that are shorter than him and that have a shorter reach than him as well. And I think that's going to be a bit of a bad thing for him, because when you fight a guy suddenly who's at that range and at that level that's your size. I mean, we saw this with John Jones versus Alexander Gustafsson the first time. Jones was used to fighting shorter opponents with shorter reach, trying to land hooks on him that couldn't reach him. So he got used to doing that, and then Gustafsson comes along with pretty long arms himself and good range, and he's the same height as John Jones, and all of a sudden he's piecing up John Jones, and Jones has to grit down and pull it out of nowhere in the 4th and 5th round to get himself that win. But that was a shock to the system on John Jones. I think this is going to be a similar shock to the system, but the thing is, this ain't Gustafsson. This is Pereira, one of the best glory kickboxers of all time, the first simultaneous glory kickboxing world champion, who was just there at that level a year and 2 months ago, who has a devastating left hook, 80 inches of reach, 6'4". Israel Adesanya's not 6'4". He isn't. He's slightly taller than Jan Blachowicz. Dominic Reyes is taller than Jan Blachowicz. He has a higher height differential between him and Jan Blachowicz than Israel Adesanya had. And Pereira's taller than Dominic Reyes. So we're going to see a taller, bigger man than Israel Adesanya in the cage. Okay? Who's got the same reach as him. Who has the mental edge over him because he beat him before and KO'd him. Who also has the hunger factor as well, because Adesanya's been champion for some time. He's a millionaire now. He's made his career. He's getting millions every single fight. He's living in a mansion with his team. And Pereira lands left hooks. And I'm looking previously in fights of Israel Adesanya, and I'm seeing people land left hooks over and over again, man. I'm seeing people land left hooks over and over again. And not only that, they're landing left hooks. Listen to me closely. After their legs are being destroyed. They're having their legs chewed up, and they're still finding success landing decent shots on Israel Adesanya. Jan Blachowicz found a way to deal with the leg kicks. I bet you anything Alex Pereira's going to have a way to deal with them as well. He's going to maybe take some, but he's going to give some back, which we haven't really seen anyone do to Israel Adesanya yet. He's going to give leg kicks back. He's going to check them when Adesanya throws them at him, and then he's going to start finding his way on the feet. And we've seen people like Whittaker get their leg chewed up and only their leg hurt in the fight, other than being like dropped off balance in the first round. We've seen Whittaker land and out-jab Adesanya for 5 rounds with his lead hand. Left hand. Land left hooks on Israel Adesanya's chin many times into their fights. Kelvin Gastelum landed the left hook on Israel Adesanya, but he had to lunge to get it. If Kelvin Gastelum needs to lunge and throw himself forwards at Israel Adesanya to land a left hook, and he can, Pereira can do it from his basic stance. I truly believe that. Jan Blachowicz, great kickboxer, Polish national Muay Thai champion at a certain weight class, and maybe European Muay Thai champion, and then world Muay Thai champion at one stage as well. Maybe not in a major promotion, but he's a very experienced Muay Thai fighter with good Muay Thai wins and credentials. And he was able to land left hooks and jabs over and over again on Israel Adesanya. Adesanya would throw, Jan would go hook, left hook, but he wouldn't throw it with much because he didn't want to overthrow his shots. Pereira throws it with a lot. And could that leave him open to Israel Adesanya? Maybe it could. But I feel like he's going to land it. If all of these other guys have landed it, like Jan Blachowicz has gone 5 rounds, and Pereira might be the same size as Jan Blachowicz. He's got a longer reach. He's a taller guy. He's got a bigger frame. He probably doesn't weigh as much, nor does he have much of the grappling threat. But Israel Adesanya stood and struck with Jan Blachowicz for 3 rounds, and Jan Blachowicz outlanded him massively in those 3 rounds. Outlanded him and beat him in the first 2 rounds on the scorecards. Clearly. Out-jabbed him to the body, which Pereira does a lot of. We saw that against Sean Strickland. And also landed that left hook that Pereira likes to land. And when he does land it, it's over. So I feel like we're going to see a very patient first round. Both guys landing some good leg kicks. They start to pick it up at the end of round 1. Pereira rushes in, lands a couple of decent shots. Izzy takes it, lands a couple of good shots back. They're both like, yeah, we took each other's shots. We're getting into it now. Round 2 begins. They go back to leg kicking each other and playing that game at range. Pereira jabbing the body. Maybe Izzy lands a couple of jabs and a couple of punches at range as well. And then we're going to start to see Pereira time that left hook. And I think he'll find that left hook in round 2. But I think it will be after maybe Adesanya lands a couple of shots, starts feeling himself, starts getting into that mode where he's overdoing stuff to seem cool coming forward. I'm not taking a dig at him. He genuinely does that. Like, he'll have success and he'll start doing, like, unnecessary movements as he's coming forward to, like, put style on it and stuff like that. And I think he'll start getting into that mode where he's coming forward and showing a few different looks. And then, boom, Alex Pereira will land that left hook after Adesanya throws something of his own. And I think we'll see Pereira become the world champion. Maybe Adesanya could win a rematch, but I think this is genuinely Alex Pereira's time. And I hope I've broke it down clear enough to you as to why I believe that. If he doesn't shoot on Pereira, which I believe there's a 5% chance he will, come into this fight with that game plan that might not even be successful anyway, he's in massive trouble here. I don't think he's improved his kickboxing since he started MMA. You could argue that, listen, Pereira's not going to be as good at kickboxing, but he stopped a year and 2 months ago. From the peak of kickboxing against one of the best kickboxers on earth that he should have beaten even after he started his MMA career. You know what I mean? Alex Pereira, he didn't just stop kickboxing all at once. He did a couple kickboxing fights against top-level guys, became the two-weight glory champion, then thought, you know what? I'll try out MMA. Beat the guy Thomas Powell with the left hook. Everyone's seen that highlight reel KO at LFA. And then, after that, he goes back to kickboxing, beats the next best guy in the world in Artem Vatikov. Weird decision, whatever. They rematch. He loses, but arguably could have won. And then comes into MMA in the UFC. And then comes back to MMA in the UFC. And since then, it's been like a year. A year ago, he was arguably still the best kickboxer on earth. Adesanya never was, and only was close 5 years ago when he got sparked out by Pereira. I'm going with Pereira here. Can't ignore all of these logical reasonings that I'm coming to in my head. I know he's got gyno, and when he's got gyno, his power seems to be a bit higher. You know what I mean? Like the Paulo Costa fight, like we don't see Adesanya really hurt anyone on the feet or land anything too major and stuff like that. But when we saw the gyno in the Paulo Costa fight, when he knew Paulo Costa was going to be big and strong, he all of a sudden is KOing Paulo Costa, barely grazing him with a knuckle and stuff like that. So I understand that is a factor that like Adesanya is a massive cheat, but Alex Pereira probably is as well. Let's be real, dude. Kickboxing ain't a clean sport. So if Adesanya's on that pack, Pereira's on it as well. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to trust in Alex Pereira. Plus that mental edge. I think Adesanya's going to get all emotional at the press conference, but we'll see how it goes. I got Alex Pereira winning. We'll see how it goes. I think I've explained it enough. Cannonier was landing left hooks. The same left hook. Watch a video on my second channel. I'll find it for you right now. Before I go. And by the way, I'm going to be posting a lot on my second channel this week. So the MMA Guru clips. Check out that. I'll have a video there today. I'll have a video tomorrow, the day after. All of the weekdays of this week I'm planning to upload. You can go back and you can check out the videos on my second channel. And there's a video called... I'll find it. If Pereira lands these shots on Adesanya, does he KO him? Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira prediction. And it's Cannonier landing near enough the same shots on Adesanya that Pereira landed on Adesanya to KO him. If Cannonier can do it, Pereira can easily. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle Pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye. Pereira round 2 KO left hook.